أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good morning to all of you. On behalf of India Study Center, I welcome you all to this significant event where we reaffirm our commitment to the just cause of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. This seminar and the inauguration of the Kashmir Resource Center mark an important milestone in our collective academic and policy discourse on one of the most pressing issues of our time. Every year, Pakistan observes Kashmir Solidarity Day to express unwavering support for the Kashmiri people's right to self-determination and as enshrined in the UN Charter as well as the Security Council resolutions. Indian occupied forces in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir are responsible for many untold atrocities, enforced disappearances, and extrajudicial killings. But one thing is clear, that they could not break the will of the Kashmiri people for their right to self-determination. Pakistan has always stood in the solidarity with the people of occupied Jammu and Kashmir and has condemned in the strongest terms the human rights violations in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Ladies and gentlemen, to document the Indian atrocities in occupied Kashmir and transfer the knowledge and research related to Jammu and Kashmir dispute, India Study Center at Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad has taken the initiative to establish the Kashmir Resource Center. The center will serve as a dedicated hub, the first of its kind in a national think tank, to facilitate research, dialogue, and informed policy making on the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. Ladies and gentlemen, with a vast repository of digital and published materials covering historical, legal, human rights, and geopolitical dimensions of the dispute, the center aims to empower scholars, researchers, and policymakers with credible data and perspectives on Jammu and Kashmir dispute. The Kashmir Resource Center is not just an archive. It is a beacon of knowledge, a place where facts will counter disinformation, and where scholarly work will strengthen the narrative of justice, peace, and Kashmiri rights to self-determination. Through research and advocacy, we aspire to keep the Jammu and Kashmir dispute alive in national and international discourse. I extend my gratitude to the team India Study Center, Ms. Mavish Hafiz, Ms. Mahin Shafiq, Mr. Osama Hamid, and Mr. Ahmed Khan, as well as the administration, especially Mr. Nakash and his team, and library staff, Mr. Abid Hussain and his team, who worked hard to make this concept into reality. I also thank the leadership of ISSI, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood and Ambassador Suhail Mahmood for their continuous support. Ladies and gentlemen, let us move forward with a resolve and unity, ensuring that Kashmir's voice is heard loud and clear in the corridors of power worldwide. With these remarks, once again, thank you so much. And now I request Ambassador Suhail Mahmood, Director General, Institute of Strategic Studies, for his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Dr. Khurram. Respected Foreign Secretary, Honorable Safi Saab, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, former ministers Malik Habib Saab, Murtaza Solanki Saab, esteemed speakers, distinguished participants, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome everyone to the ISSI for this seminar in connection with the Kashmir Solidarity Day and the inauguration of the Kashmir Resource Center. We have a panel of distinguished speakers representing the youth, academia, think tanks, practitioners, and political leadership. Our special thanks to Honorable Ghulam Mohammad Safi Saab, convener of the All Parties Hurriyat Conference, for being part of today's events. The APHC's vanguard role in the fight for the Kashmiris' rights is widely acknowledged, and the APHC leadership on both sides of the line of control deserves deep appreciation for its committed efforts. It is an honor to have Ambassador Amna Baloch, Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, as the chief guest. The Foreign Office's part in ensuring that the Kashmir cause remains at the core of Pakistan's foreign policy is laudable. We are grateful to Foreign Secretary Baloch for her own contributions in this regard. Distinguished participants, on 5th of February, we witnessed the whole nation galvanized as one to reaffirm Pakistan's abiding support and solidarity for the Kashmiri people in their just struggle. Over the past 78 years, Kashmiris have resolutely resisted India's illegal occupation, patiently endured brutal suppression at the hands of the occupying forces, and refused to flinch from their resolve to fight for freedom. Their movement is rooted firmly in the principles of the United Nations Charter and international law. The relevant UN Security Council resolutions categorically affirmed the Kashmiris' right to self-determination and prescribed the modality of a free and impartial plebiscite under the auspices of the United Nations to help them exercise this inalienable right. This solution to the Kashmir dispute was accepted by India, Pakistan, and the international community. While Pakistan and the Kashmiris remain steadfast in their quest for a solution based on the Security Council resolutions, India has long reneged on its solemn commitments. The international community, for the large part, vacillates between inaction and placation of India owing to geostrategic considerations or corporate interests. As a result, along with the denial of the Kashmiris' rights, peace continues to be imperiled in South Asia. Meanwhile, India's conduct in the occupied territories remains abhorrent, marked by heartless cruelty and repression, political manipulation, demographic engineering, and an onslaught of misinformation and disinformation. From seeking to paint the legitimate resistance struggle as terrorism to leveling allegations of cross-border terrorism against Pakistan, and from making desperate attempts to secure international legitimacy for its own illegal actions to projecting a false sense of normalcy since 5th of August 2019, New Delhi remains engaged in strategic deception. While India employs the currency of raw power, the Kashmiris have history, morality, and legality on their side, and their sacrifices shall not be in vain. They shall prevail, inshallah. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us, and I quote, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, unquote. For the Kashmiris and the people of Pakistan, it is imperative to reject any narratives of despair and to keep faith in the prospects of a fair settlement of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. The freedom struggles of many nations, from the Irish to the Palestinians, show that historical processes take time to unfold. What we need to ensure is to sustain perseverance of commitment, fortify unity and national consensus, and maintain steadiness of purpose. Internal strength inevitably translates into external influence. A fully reinvigorated economy, robust defense preparedness, agile and proactive diplomacy, and unshakable resolve remain indispensable drivers of an impactful policy. There is no doubt that every stakeholder across the nation believes in this just cause and is committed to its full promotion. Distinguished participants, while commemorating the Kashmir Solidarity Day, the Institute of Strategic Studies is proud to announce the establishment of the Kashmir Resource Center. This is the first of its kind in a Pakistani think tank. The ISSI is sincerely grateful for the support extended by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the fruition of this initiative. The Kashmir Resource Center is envisaged as a dedicated hub for comprehensive, reliable, and accessible information related to the Jammu and Kashmir dispute in its multiple dimensions. The idea is to consolidate a whole range of resources, including UN resolutions, reports from the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and other UN archives relevant to the Kashmir dispute, reports and statements issued by the OIC, reports and findings from international human rights organizations such as Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, Asia Watch, Concerned Citizens, and Doctors Without Borders, research works by Kashmiri, Pakistani, Indian, and foreign scholars, biographies and autobiographies of key Kashmiri leaders, publications by think tanks, and works of literature. To begin with, we have over 400 published books and reports and vast digital resources. This will remain a work in progress, and the Institute would continue to refurbish this collection in the future. In this connection, I wish to take this opportunity to extend our sincere gratitude to Foreign Secretary Amna Baloch for the Foreign Office's valuable support and for agreeing to inaugurate the center. I also wish to acknowledge and appreciate the support extended by the Khurshid National Library in Muzaffarabad, as well as several of our sister think tanks, including ISRA, IPS, KIIR, IPRI, CIS-AJK, and CAS for their unfailing help. Last but not the least, I wish to compliment our excellent India Studies Center team that worked tirelessly along with the administration and the library to ensure that we accomplish the task in a timely manner. The Kashmir Resource Center will provide practitioners, scholars, researchers, students, activists, journalists, and lay readers with a repository of knowledge to support insightful research, dialogue, and advocacy on the Kashmir issue. Hopefully, the center will play a meaningful part in creating increased awareness and understanding and promote informed discourse, particularly among the youth of Pakistan, about this most intractable of global issues from the last century. With these words, I welcome everyone again and wish fruitful deliberations during the event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very good mix of speakers from young voices to not so young, but a very active Kashmiri activists as well as the policy makers as well. So we will start with the youngest speaker, perhaps among this panel, Ms. Fatima Waheed. Ms. Fatima Waheed is a graduate of Peace and Conflict Studies from National Defense University, Islamabad. Her research interests include conflict analysis, environmental security, and non-traditional security with a strong commitment to the Kashmir cause. Ms. Fatima Waheed, you have the floor. Please wrap up within 7 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you. Excellencies, honorable guests, esteemed scholars, and my fellow youth, Assalamu alaikum. It is an honor to speak here today to talk about Kashmir, an issue that has defined regional politics for over 7 decades, but remains unresolved, unheard, and in many ways misunderstood. Every year, Pakistan observes Kashmir Solidarity Day to reaffirm our support to the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and their right to self-determination. But today, I want to emphasize that Kashmir is not just a dispute on a map. It is a humanitarian tragedy, a legal question, and a human rights crisis, and increasingly an environmental disaster. Since 1947, and more intensely since August 5th, 2019, the people of Indian occupied Kashmir have been subjected to systematic human rights violations. The list of atrocities is long. Extrajudicial killings, arbitrary arrests, enforced disappearances, torture, mass graves, and demographic changes imposed through illegal domicile laws have subjected them to increasingly humanitarian crisis. Over 96,000 Kashmiris have lost their lives in the past 3 decades. More Kashmiris have lost their lives in the past 3 decades, and moreover, 8,000 people have disappeared, their families still searching for answers. Hundreds of political prisoners, including journalists and activists, remain behind bars, simply for speaking the truth. And the world remains silent. The revocation of Article 370 and 35A was not just a political move. It was a calculated step towards erasing Kashmir's identity, a move that the international law and the United Nations Security Council resolutions, if we claim to live in a world that values democracy and justice, then why is Kashmir being denied both? Ladies and gentlemen, beyond human rights, another crisis is unfolding, one that is rarely discussed. Kashmir, once known as the paradise on earth, is now on the brink of an environmental disaster. Over the past 30 years, Kashmir has lost nearly 19% of its forest cover. Glaciers in the region are melting on an alarming rate due to deforestation and climate change, leading to the disturbing weather patterns, floods, and droughts. The Jhelum River, once the lifeline of Kashmir, is now one of the most polluted water bodies in South Asia. The Kashmiri diaspora has a vital role to play, not just in political advocacy, but in highlighting those environmental and humanitarian violations. Those residing in the United Kingdom, USA, Canada, and the whole world must lobby international organizations to recognize Kashmir's humanitarian and environmental crisis, support research, media, and legal advocacy to counter misinformation and document facts, engage with global human rights and climate movements to highlight how Kashmir's destruction is a shared concern, is a global concern. As young Pakistanis, our role is crucial. We must go beyond slogans and truly contribute to the Kashmir cause, to educate ourselves, not just through news, but through academic research, history, and first-hand Kashmiri narratives. Use digital platforms wisely, fight misinformation with facts, and ensure the world does not forget Kashmir. Support initiatives like the Kashmir Resource Center, contribute to research, advocacy, and intellectual discourse. Ladies and gentlemen, Kashmir is not just about the past. It is about the future. If the world continues to look away, it is not just Kashmir who will suffer. The entire region will bear the consequences of injustice, instability, and the ecological collapse. To the international community, I say, justice delayed is justice denied. Kashmir is not just a political conflict, it is a test of global harmony. And to my fellow Pakistanis, this is our responsibility too. We must ensure that Kashmiri's voice is not lost, its struggle not forgotten, and its future not stolen. Kashmir will see justice, Kashmir will see freedom, and we will stand with them until the day comes. Pakistan Zindabad, Kashmir Bayandabad. Thank you.
Excellent. Fatma, you have wrapped up earlier than your allotted time. Our next speaker is Ms. Tayyiba Khurshid. Ms. Tayyiba Khurshid is a dedicated researcher and analyst specializing in South Asian geopolitics, Jammu and Kashmir dispute, arms control, and international security. Currently, she is serving as a research officer at the Center for International Strategic Studies, Azad Jammu and Kashmir, known as CIS-AJK. Ms. Tayyiba, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind introduction. Honorable Chief Guest, Abna Baloch, Chairman, Board of Governors, Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, DG ISSI Ambassador Suhail Mahmood, distinguished speakers and audience, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I sit before you today as the youth from Azad Jammu and Kashmir, a region that was liberated by our ancestors with the help of people of Pakistan in October 1947. A region where we enjoy fundamental rights, our right to education, freedom of expression, and where we enjoy endless opportunities that are shaping our future. Yet, as young people from this region, we cannot turn a blind eye to the reality that the other side of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir continues to suffer under oppression, restrictions, and a denial of basic human rights. Azad Kashmir cannot be considered as a geographical entity where India can exert its control. It is the legacy of the Kashmiris' freedom movement, and the blood of innocent Kashmiris is the fuel which has derived the freedom of Azad Kashmir. It is not only a territory that broke free from Indian rule, but it is the actual representation of Kashmiris' right to self-determination. For us in Azad Kashmir, life is normal. We pursue education, and I'm sitting here in front of you, and this shows the strong bond between Azad Kashmir and Pakistan, because I have been educated in Pakistani institutions. And Pakistan has groomed me to advocate for Kashmir cause, not only at national levels, but international levels as well. We, unlike our brothers and sisters in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, are not subject to curfews, enforced disappearances, or communication blackouts. We are not deprived of the ability to express our identity or make choices about our future. But our hearts remain connected to the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, who live under constant surveillance and face the brunt of an unresolved dispute. When I see the social media campaigns drawing a contrast between the two regions, we cannot, contrast the two regions, because we build our futures with hope, and our brothers and sisters continue to struggle for the most basic rights. Here it is also important to define the relationship between Pakistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and that was defined by Karachi Agreement, the agreement that legally outlined the mutual relationship between Pakistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and where Pakistan has given or assumed the role of supporting Kashmir's struggle for freedom. Pakistan promised to raise Kashmir issue at national and international forums, and it's been 7 decades that Pakistan has not only fought wars with India, adopted a nuclear deterrent. Pakistan has also advocated for Kashmir's freedom and right to self-determination at all available international platforms. And despite India's denial of all agreements and UN resolutions, Pakistan continues to provide support for the Kashmiri people. And during these years, Pakistan has advocated the implementation of UNSC resolutions on various platforms. Here it is also important to mention that social media and narrative building has helped us divert from the real cause. And we, the youth of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, have to realize this, that there is a strong bond between Pakistan and Azad Kashmir, and if we will be united, we can advocate the Kashmir cause in true letter and spirit. I would just like to quote the example that recent protest in Azad Jammu and Kashmir over essential commodities, that was highlighted by Indian media, and they propagated a very false image. But we should also here emphasize that Pakistan prompted a swift response because it extended significant subsidies on electricity, wheat, and water. I would like to draw the comparison between the provinces of Pakistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which produces approximately 30,000 megawatts of electricity, and the cost of electricity there is 23.59 per unit for the first 100 units. But in Azad Kashmir now, it is as much lower rate as rupees 3 per unit. And this shows that this is the support of the Pakistani government that it has shown to Azad Jammu and Kashmir. In this way, we enjoy far cheaper energy compared to other provinces. In 2024 and 2025 budget alone, Pakistan contributed rupees 105 billion, that is 52% of Azad Jammu and Kashmir total budget, along with an additional rupees 1 billion in water usage charges and a special 23 billion grant. But all this information is not reaching out to the far-flung areas of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, where the youth of Azad Jammu and Kashmir is moving away from the cause, and they are comparing, CISS AJK is reaching out to the youth of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and we have been communicating with them, delivering lectures and doing all this stuff. And they have been raising questions. They have been comparing the comparative developments, and the facade of normalcy that the Bharatiya Janata Party has been projecting has reached out to the Azad Jammu and Kashmir government, and they are saying that side is more developed and things like that. But we have to understand that we have to reach out to the youth of Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and we have to bridge this gap between youth of Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan, because it is extremely essential for strengthening and making a unified voice for the Kashmir cause. While Indian narrative is on the limelight via media platforms, it is the responsibility of the AJK government and the Pakistani government to take initiatives through which youth can create compelling content such as documentaries, blogs, podcasts, movies to, give a counter narrative to what India has been propagating regarding Kashmir and its issue. Here I would advocate for joint activism because to further solidify our efforts to promote Kashmir cause. Encouraging Kashmiri and Pakistani youth to represent the Kashmir issue at global events such as UN Youth Assembly, OIC Youth Conferences, and human rights conventions will help bring international attention to the issue. Additionally, collaborating with Kashmir and Pakistani student associations abroad can amplify the voices of those affected and build a stronger support network throughout the world. In the end, I would like to say that both Pakistan and AJK should work as a unified force and effectively advocate for the Kashmir cause on national and international fronts. The youth of Azad Jammu and Kashmir are ready to play their role, not just in contributing to the progress of our own region, but in advocating for a peaceful resolution of the dispute as per the aspirations of the Kashmiri people. I pray for the future where the aspirations of all Kashmiris are respected and where our fellow brothers and sisters in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir can enjoy the same freedoms and opportunities that we are blessed in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Taiba. And perhaps the next step could be that the Kashmir Resource Center should also be inaugurated in CISS AJK to basically educate the Azad Jammu and Kashmir's youth. Our next speaker is Ms. Naila Altaf Kiani. Ms. Naila Altaf Kiani is a distinguished social and political analyst and human rights advocate from Azad Jammu and Kashmir, with extensive experience hosting prominent talk shows like Kashmir Today at AJK TV. She is pursuing her PhD in International Relations at National University of Modern Languages, Namal, Islamabad. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Honorable guests, respected speakers, and dear participants, today I'm going to talk about the women's role in resistance movement of Kashmir. Being a woman, I'm so proud of the resilience, courage, strength, and struggles that Kashmiri women have shown in the Kashmiri movement. For over 7 decades, Kashmiri women have stood as symbols of resilience despite brutal repression and systemic violence. No matter how militarization and suppression is trying to break their souls, Kashmiri women have not merely survived, they have resisted, challenging the narratives that label them as passive victims of militarized violence. Instead, they have actively shaped the struggle for justice, embedding their actions in the broader movement of Kashmir's freedom and dignity. The story of Kashmir is not just a tale of territorial conflict, but also one of the oppression, economic dependency, and political resistance, where women play a central but invisible role. The world often talks about the war and conflict in Kashmir and the politics in Kashmir, but it forgets the women who have stood at the front lines, fighting not just for the survival, but for the dignity, justice, and freedom. For more than 7 decades, Kashmiri women have played a crucial role in the resistance movement. They have led protests, demonstrations, and sit-ins, raised their voices in streets, and protested their homes and communities. Even in the darkest times, our women have defied military curfews. They have shielded their sons and husbands from arrests. They have fought back with the only weapons they have: courage and resilience. Women have acted as messengers in the world's highest militarized zone. They have worked as caregivers and protectors. They have kept the movement alive through their sacrifices by singing lullabies to the freedom to their infants, by whispering the poetry of resistance into the ears of their youth, and by igniting the fire of defiance in the hearts of their men. With every tear shed and every voice raised, they have carried the weight of an unbroken struggle, ensuring that the dream of freedom never fades. The price of resistance has been heavy. Many Kashmiri women have been imprisoned, tortured, and silenced for speaking the truth. I would like to mention Asya Indarabi here, the founder of Dukhtarane-Millat, who has been imprisoned for years for speaking against oppression. She remains a symbol of resistance, inspiring countless women to continue the struggle. And I would not miss here mentioning Nahida Nasreen and Fahmida Sofi as well, who have been jailed under draconian laws. And then there is Anjum Zamurad Habib, a political activist who was imprisoned and later wrote a heartbreaking account of her time in Indian jails, exposing the brutal treatment of Kashmiri women prisoners. These women, ladies and gentlemen, are not criminals. They are prisoners of conscience, and they are jailed for their ideologies, and they have refused to bow down to oppression. Over the past 3 decades, an estimated 10,000 men have disappeared in Kashmir, yet they are not officially declared dead as well. And this has left thousands of women in cruel state of limbo, and they are known as half-widows. They are trapped between hope and despair, with no closure, with no financial security. Without death certificates, these women are denied pensions, ration cards, and the bank accounts, making survival a daily battle. They cannot inherit their husband's properties unless they prove that he was not involved in any kind of militant activities. But it is nearly impossible in such a militarized zone. Many half-widows face homelessness as their in-laws and other relatives refuse to grant them property rights, obviously, under religious or legal pretext. They argue that a wife can only inherit when the husband is officially declared dead. These women are not just mourning the loss of their loved ones. They are fighting for their right to exist in a society that refuses to recognize their pain. And their struggle is not just for justice, but for basic survival, dignity, and the right to call a place home. Then there is mental trauma and psychological impacts on the women and girls of Kashmir. The ongoing conflict has deeply affected the mental health of Kashmiri women and girls. Many suffer from depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder because they have lost their loved ones to enforced disappearances or killings, because of the constant fear of raids, arrests, and sexual violence by security forces, and because of the daily trauma of living under curfews, restrictions, and military checkpoints. Young girls in particular grow up in an environment of fear and uncertainty. Many are afraid to go out to the schools, step outside even, and even speak openly. The lack of mental health services in Kashmir worsens their suffering. Despite these struggles, ladies and gentlemen, Kashmiri women have refused to be silenced. They have found ways to resist, not just in the streets, but also through media, arts, and grassroots organizations. I would like to mention here the Association of Parents of Disappeared Persons, which is an initiative of the brave Kashmiri woman Parveena Ahangar, whose son was taken many, many years ago. This is a powerful collective where many Kashmiri women have united to fight against the heartbreaking reality of enforced disappearances. And before 2019, on the 10th of every month, they would gather in Srinagar, holding up photographs of their missing loved ones, refusing to let their stories fade into silence. This act of collective mourning was more than grief. It is called resistance. It is a powerful political statement, a defiance against state-sanctioned violence that seeks to erase their family members from their memories and from history. By standing together, they demand accountability, truth, and justice. Then there is another collective, Vanan Zanan. It is made up of two Kashmiri words. Zanan means the women, and Vanan means to talk. It is again a feminist initiative which has crafted safe spaces for women to share their stories, demand justice, and reclaim their voices. Then there are women in media like Anuradha Bhasin, Masrat Zahra, and Sana Irshad Matu, who have faced harassments and threats to their reporting, yet they continue to expose the truth. Poetry, literature, and storytelling have become powerful tools of resistance in Kashmir. Women are using art to document their pain, resilience, and dreams for a free Kashmir. These feminist movements are breaking barriers, challenging stereotypes, and ensuring that women's voices are heard in their fight for justice. I would like to conclude with the concept of Weston, another Kashmiri word, which meant sisterhood or friendship, but Uzma Falak has transformed it into a theoretical concept of resistance. Now it represents female solidarity, shared resistance and resilience, and unbreakable sisterhood. Baston is when mothers wait for their disappeared sons, standing together, and they mourn, but they refuse to bend down or to broke. Baston is when half-widows fight for justice, supporting each other when the world abandons them. And Baston is when young girls write poetry, paint their pain, sing together, and talk in front of the power. In Kashmir, resistance is not only guns or slogans. It is about holding hands in the face of oppression, lifting each other up, and refusing to be erased. Thank you.
Excellent, Ms. Naila Altaf Kiani. Our next speaker is Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani. Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani is the chairman of Kashmir Institute of International Relations, KIIR. He is an active member of All Parties Hurriyat Conference. Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani is political commentator and human rights activist. He has presented the people of Jammu and Kashmir at various esteemed international and national platforms, including UN Human Rights Commission and Subcommission in Geneva. Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani, you have the floor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Dr. Khurram. First of all, let me commend the Institute of Strategical Studies for holding this event and also establishing Kashmir Resource Center. I have been asked to talk about the Narendra Modi's Kashmir policy. I'll start with Narendra Modi started with its policy discrediting, debasing Kashmiri leadership. As soon as Modi took the office in 2014, the Kashmiri political leaders were rounded up. They were caged in different jails or they were house arrested. And then they were discredited by different ways by the Indian media, Indian film industry and others different ways. And also debased these leaders. They were taken to the different jails of India so that people could not reach out to them. Their voices could not reach there. And along with that, the Modi government at the same time started criminalization of freedom of expression. All the news outlets in Indian-occupied Kashmir, newspapers, others were asked not to publish or report anything about the human rights violation in Kashmir, not to release any statements of the political leaders of the dissent, and so that it could not reach to the people. This was another way of discrediting or debasing the leadership or making them out of circulation in the public domain. And the third one was the criminalization of political dissent. Anybody who talked about the freedom, who talked about the abrogation of Article 370 or anything else, he was branded as terrorist. He was taken away under the notorious law, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, because it has been branded that if anybody talks about it, against it, he will be taken to the prison under this law. And then they tightened the grip over media, which I already told you, the political leaders, the journalists, and also the human rights defenders. They were all rounded up. They were also put behind the bars under these notorious laws, and one of the prominent human rights defenders like Khurram Parvez, who has been acclaimed by the international human rights organizations, by the United Nations Human Rights Council, by special procedures, and on his arrest, even for the first time, the High Commissioner of Human Rights came with a statement for his release, and this human rights defender's special rapporteur said that Khurram is a human rights activist, not a terrorist. But Indian government is continuously branding him as a terrorist, and he has been well, his only crime was because when the Indian government put a blanket ban on the communications in Indian occupied Kashmir after abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. Khurram could reach out to the international human rights organizations, and even after that, the Human Rights Commission and the special rapporteurs jointly sent 19 communications to government of India about the human rights abuse in occupied Kashmir. And when the government agencies they investigated how these informations have reached to the United Nations Human Rights Commissioner's office, they found it was the Khurram Parvez basically was responsible it, and then he has been taken out, and you know he's in Delhi's there for last 3 years. So then the Modi government's another point was to underestimate and undermine the political leadership of Kashmir. The existing leadership of Kashmir, whether it was the pro-Indian leadership, that was also underestimated and undermined. They created new leadership in Kashmir. They tried to create new political parties in Kashmir. But we have seen over the period of time that also failed during the elections when the test, the real test of those leaders came in, they failed to deliver. But it was taken at that time when they abrogated Article 370, 35A, and then at that time the Modi government took the plea that this development in Kashmir is because the development has been hindered in Kashmir because of this Article 370 and 35A, and so it is abrogated, there will be development. Now the false narrative of integration, development, normalcy was propagated by the Modi government all over world, that now the Kashmir is normal, there is normalcy, there is development, and Kashmiris have accepted the decisions of the government of India. In this narrative, all the government, not only the government organs, but also the Indian film industry and other institutions were used to portray this, that there is normalcy in Kashmir, and Kashmiris have accepted the decision of the Modi government. But and they tried to ignore the cultural complexities of Kashmir and tried to put on the Indian culture in Kashmir. But over the period of time, these things also got exposed at international level. Even when they held a film fair it was in Goa, and an Israeli judge who was judging that, he also said this is all propaganda, this is bullish about that, what was that? Life in Kashmir. Yeah, not this. The one against these exhorts of Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmir Files, the Kashmir Files. The judge from the Israel, he said that it's all bullish, it's propaganda, even that, and he did not accede to the Indian propaganda at that time. But all these things, what the Modi government has been doing, they're portraying the defense-related connectivity as the development in Kashmir. All those defense-related activities, rails, roads, and other things have been portrayed around the globe as the development, not taking into consideration that these developments have nothing to do with the socio-economic upliftment of the local people. Instead, these developments are there to take away their livelihood, their orchards, and everything. And at the top of it, they are responsible for the decline in the ecosystem in Kashmir and environment degradation in Kashmir, which we have seen from last few years, that what is happening on that front in occupied Kashmir. The main focus of Modi's Kashmir policy, the hallmark of Modi's policy was the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. It was the hallmark of its policy. The main purposes, I have already discussed that what was the purpose of this. It was the integration into India and to implement the Hindutva agenda more or less in Kashmir, and in order to Indianize Kashmir, to relate Kashmir to the Hinduism and all that, and change the demography of Kashmir through different things, as has been talked about already, through domicile laws, through delimitation of assembly segments and others in there. But the recent elections, which were held for the so-called assembly, although the Modi government already, during the elections which were held for the Indian Parliament, they sensed that the people of Kashmir have rejected Modi government's decisions, because the people did not vote for their candidates and they lost it poorly. Even in Ladakh constituency, which they thought they lost that constituency also. But then they did one more thing. They took away all the powers of the state assembly, and they were vested in the lieutenant governor of the state. So all police order, executive order, and the appointment of judicial officers now lies with the lieutenant governor appointed by the New Delhi. So the assembly, which is there, has no powers to do that. That's like a municipal corporation. But the results of that assembly elections are very much that we should investigate into those results, and should we can make a case out of that. That Modi government, while doing the delimitation of the assembly segments, its main purpose was to have a more power of the Hindu majority in the assembly, because they gave 6 seats to Jammu, and those seats also were given to the areas where there were more Hindu-dominated voters. And they did not keep the geographical connectivity in consideration, neither they keep their population ratio in consideration. If you will see, Kashtawar is a Kashtawar district. There were in past there were 2 constituency assembly segments, but now there are 3. Kashtawar has a 44% population of Hindus and 56% population of Muslims. But the assembly segments were carved in such a way that 2 of the assembly segments became Hindu-dominated, and only 1 remained the Muslim majority. Likewise, they did the same in different places so that they could get. But the election results, which came after the elections, we saw that Modi government even failed in that. People in Kashmir, for the first time, I will tell you, the elections in Kashmir, the voting pattern in Kashmir was that Muslims, it was on the religious basis. For the first time, the voting pattern in Kashmir was on a religious basis. That's why we could see after doing all the pre-election maneuvering, whatever they could do, they could not get a seat from Rajouri, Poonch, and other places because of the Muslim majority area, and all the people gave the vote to Muslims. So, but the Modi government is on to change the demography through fast-track means. They want to create more and more spaces, pilgrimage spaces in Kashmir, in order to attract through tourism. What they say this is tourism, it is basically to Hinduize the Indian-occupied Kashmir. They attract more and more Indians to Kashmir and create new places of pilgrimage. Wherever there is anything, they say Ram was here, or some Krishna was here, anything, they name it. So this is Amarnath, this is Chota Amarnath, this is Bada Amarnath, and like that they have created many places of pilgrimage, new places of pilgrimage in occupied Kashmir, so that they could Indianize Kashmir. This has been the Modi's policy in Kashmir, when we look it through the prism that it is all to Indianize the Kashmir, and at the international level to spread a falsehood about normalcy, integration, and development. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And as you have pointed out rightly about the Modi's Kashmir policy, so Johan Galtung once said that basically there are two types of violence: structural violence and cultural violence. And Modi's Kashmir policy is a prime example of structural violence, where it is creating structures politically, economically, and socially to suppress Kashmiris. Our next speaker is Mr. Ghulam Mohammad Safi. Mr. Ghulam Mohammad Safi is the convener of All Parties Hurriyat Conference (APIC). He had the honor to represent the people of Jammu and Kashmir at the organization of Islamic Conference, Summit, and Contact Group meetings, Human Rights Council, Geneva, and UN Third Committee. Mr. Ghulam Mohammad Safi, the floor is yours.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. There are three dimensions of the issue of Jammu and Kashmir: the dispute of Jammu and Kashmir, the conflict of Jammu and Kashmir, because there are people who say that Kashmir is not an issue, it's a conflict, it's a dispute, and many more things. The first dimension of the Kashmir issue is that there are human rights violations going on unabated. More than 100,000 people have been martyred in the past few years. And in aggregate, we find that more than 5 lakh people, 500,000 people have been eliminated, murdered, killed, martyred by the Indian forces. People have been killed in custody, people have been tortured, rape is being used as a weapon of war. Pellets and pellet guns are used, and the youth of Jammu and Kashmir have been blinded through those pellets. So this is one aspect of the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. The crimes against humanity, violation of human rights. And the second aspect of the issue is that these violations are a cause-related phenomenon. And the cause of all this is that the people demand their right to self-determination, which had been promised to them by India, by Pakistan, by the international community through United Nations Security Council resolutions. So they have been asking for it, for the implementation of these resolutions. And India does not want anyone to speak out and talk about a plebiscite, a right of self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. They want a silence in Jammu and Kashmir. They want only one thing there, that everybody should chant, Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. When did Jammu and Kashmir become an integral part of India? Have the people of Jammu and Kashmir exercised their right? India says, yes, they have exercised their right. This is what Rajiv Gandhi told Muhtarma Benazir Bhutto Sahiba Shaheed. Rajiv Gandhi said, the people of Jammu and Kashmir have participated in so many elections, so their remains no need of a plebiscite under the auspices of United Nations. But India needs to be asked, can an election conducted by the Indian Election Commission be a substitute for the UN-conducted right to self-determination, UN-conducted plebiscite? No. So the second dimension of the Kashmir issue is that the people of Jammu and Kashmir want the right to self-determination. And let me also say that there is a huge difference between Pakistan and India regarding the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. Because India says that it is an integral part of India. While as Pakistan has the Article 257 of its constitution, which states, and I quote, when the people of the state of Jammu and Kashmir decide to accede to Pakistan, the relationship between Pakistan and that state shall be determined in accordance with the wishes of the people of that state. तो हम इंडिया और पाकिस्तान को एक ही तराजू में नहीं तोल सकते. Pakistan has been helping the Kashmiris. भाई मैं यूनाइटेड नेशंस की थर्ड कमेटी में जाके मुझे बात करने का मौका मिला कश्मीर पे. हाउ कुड आई रीच America, UN? It was because of Pakistan. मकबूजा कश्मीर के लोगों को निकलने का ही मौका नहीं दिया जाता कश्मीर से, बात करने का मौका नहीं मिलता. And Pakistan allows the convener of all parties Hurriyat conference to go to the UN and talk about Kashmir the way he wishes to talk. ये नहीं कि कोई चीज लिख कर दी पाकिस्तान ने मुझे और ये कहा कि आप जाके आप ये बयान वहां पे दीजिए. मैं आपका ज्यादा वक्त नहीं लूंगा, लेकिन चंद एक चीजें मैं आपके गोश गुजार करना चाहता हूं, especially when Ambassador Amna Baloch is here. कश्मीर के हवाले से, when we talk about the resolution of the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, the solution of the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, it should always be a comprehensive solution and not a piecemeal approach. जम्मू व कश्मीर का जो हल अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा ने दिया है, we should never lose sight of those UN Security Council resolutions. We should not go for an out-of-box solution for the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. Never. We'll have to stick to the UN Security Council resolutions which talk about a plebiscite to be held in Jammu and Kashmir, in the entire state of Jammu and Kashmir. मैं ये भी कहना चाहूंगा कि हम पूरी रियासत जम्मू व कश्मीर को पाकिस्तान का हिस्सा देखना चाहते हैं, because Kashmir is the jugular vein of Pakistan. This was said by our Qaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And someone a few years back said that हमने बंदों को देखा है, दोनों आंखें नहीं है किसी इंसान की, लेकिन फिर भी वो जिंदा है. एक आंख नहीं है, दोनों आंखें नहीं है, एक बाजू नहीं है, दोनों बाजू नहीं है, एक टांग नहीं है, दोनों टांगें नहीं है, फिर भी वो जिंदा है. लेकिन किसी की शहरक कटी हुई हो, दुश्मन ने उसकी शहरक पर छुरी चलाई हो और वो फिर भी जिंदा हो, इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल. तो हमें कश्मीर को वो शहरग वाली हैसियत देनी होगी, क्योंकि कायदे आजम कभी यूं ही बातें नहीं किया करते थे। वो जो भी बात कहते थे सोच समझ कर करते थे, और वो कायदे आजम ही थे जिन्होंने मरने से पहले, जब वो जियारत में थे, आखिर में वो किस चीज ने उनको परेशान कर रखा था? What was he asking those who were near him there? वो पूछ रहे थे उनसे, अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा के एक मिशन को आना था यहां मुझसे कश्मीर पे बात करने के लिए। डिड दैट मिशन कम? आ गया वो या अभी तक नहीं आया? He was so concerned about the issue of Kashmir. तो पहली चीज मैं ये अर्ज करना चाहूंगा इन प्रेजेंस ऑफ एम्बेसडर आमना बलोच और फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी। दूसरी चीज ये कि हमें हमेशा बेसिक इशू को निगाहों के सामने रखना होगा, पेरिफेरल इश्यूज को नहीं। ये खुद हम कश्मीरियों के लिए भी लाजिम है। The basic issue is the right of self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Peripheral issues, 370, 35A, bijli, pani, महंगाई, there are so many issues. But we need to concentrate on the basic issue of right of self-determination. तीसरी चीज, हमें हिंदुस्तान से आजादी ये पेश नजर रहना चाहिए, डेवलपमेंट नहीं। सईद अली गीलानी ने, अल्लाह उनकी कब्र को पुरनूर करे, उनने बड़ी प्यारी बात कही कि अगर हिंदुस्तान जम्मू व कश्मीर की सड़कों पे तारकोल के बजाय सोना चांदी हीरे जवाहरात भी बिछा दे, फिर भी हम अपने असल से बाज नहीं आएंगे। वो हिंदुस्तान की काबिज फौज की मौजूदगी में कहते थे हम पाकिस्तानी हैं, पाकिस्तान हमारा है। उनसे पूछा गया, एज ए चेयरमैन ऑफ द ऑल पार्टीज हुर्रियत कॉन्फ्रेंस, यू हैव बीन सेइंग दैट वी आर फॉर द राइट ऑफ सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन ऑफ द पीपल ऑफ जम्मू एंड कश्मीर। अब आप कह रहे हैं हम पाकिस्तानी हैं, पाकिस्तान हमारा। तो उन्होंने कहा, हम जिस राइट ऑफ सेल्फ डिटर्मिनेशन की बात करते हैं वो जम्मू व कश्मीर के हिंदू के लिए भी है, पंडित के लिए भी है, सिख के लिए भी है, बुद्धिस्ट के लिए भी है, मुसलमान के लिए भी है। लेकिन मैं मरने से पहले अपने लोगों को बताना चाहता हूं कि कल जब रायशुमारी होगी तो गिलानी का वोट कहां जाएगा? हम पाकिस्तानी हैं, पाकिस्तान हमारा है। तो डेवलपमेंट मीन्स नथिंग। गुलामी में आपको कितना हसीन पट्टा पहनाया जाता है, डज दैट मैटर? वो पट्टा पट्टा ही है। जब तक वो हिंदुस्तान का पट्टा हिंदुस्तान हमारी गर्दनों में पहनाना चाहता है, हम उसको गुलामी का ही पट्टा मानेंगे। वो सोने का हो, चांदी का हो, हीरे जवाहरात भी अगर उसमें जुड़े हुए हो। चौथी चीज जो मैं अर्ज करना चाहता हूं वो ये, हिंदुस्तान और पाकिस्तान के बेशुमार मामलात हैं आपस में। इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान कैन talk about those issues. They have every right to talk about that. But when it comes to Kashmir, इंडिया अगर मुझसे कहता है, हुर्रियत कॉन्फ्रेंस से कहता है, आइए बात करें, हम कहते हैं पाकिस्तान को टेबल पर लाओ, इंडिया टेबल पर होगा और कश्मीरी टेबल पर होगा। When there are parleys regarding कश्मीर, जब आपकी आलू प्याज की तिजारत की बात हो तो हमें उसमें जाके क्या घुसना है? आपके दीगर मामलात हैं वो आप निभाएं इंडिया के साथ, लेकिन कश्मीर पे जब बात होगी तो आपकी तरफ से भी ये बात सामने आनी चाहिए कि ये ट्राइपार्टाइट है, there have to be tripartite talks between India, Pakistan and the leadership of Jammu and Kashmir. और ये tripartite talks भी क्यों हों? For the implementation of UN resolutions. उस पे हम बात करेंगे, इंडिया को उस पर लाने की बात करेंगे. आखिरी चीज जो मैं कहना चाहता हूं, we should never opt for the mediation of any country which is a strategic partner of the occupying power. कोई भी ताकत हो, अगर वो इंडिया का दोस्त है, उसका स्ट्रैटेजिक पार्टनर है, हमें किसी भी सूरत में उसकी सालिसी के लिए नहीं जाना चाहिए. You can go for the mediation of China on Kashmir. You can go for the mediation of Turkey on Kashmir, but not America. Not any country which is the strategic partner of the occupying power, India. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, our chief guest of the today's event is Ambassador Amna Baloch, Foreign Secretary of Pakistan. Ambassador Amna Baloch assumed the charge as the 33rd Foreign Secretary of Pakistan on 11 September 2024. Ambassador Baloch's previous appointment was the Ambassador of Pakistan to Belgium, Luxembourg, and European Union from May 2023 to September 2024. Prior to that, she also served as the High Commissioner of Pakistan to Malaysia. Ambassador Amna Baloch, you have the floor.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, Chairman, Board of Governors, Institute of Strategic Studies. Janab Ambassador Suhail Mahmood Sahab, Director General, Institute of Strategic Studies. My fellow speakers, honorable members participating from Azad Kashmir, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for affording me the opportunity to speak before this august gathering of activists, researchers, and academics. Today's topic contains three key concepts: peace, rights, and self-determination. All these words carry extreme significance in the context of the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. Ladies and gentlemen, self-determination is a key principle of international law, denoting the legal right of people to decide their own destiny. The right to self-determination is an inalienable right guaranteed by the United Nations Charter and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Grant of fundamental rights and freedoms cannot be ensured in the absence of self-determination. The UN's General Assembly has been adopting a resolution on self-determination for last several decades. Unfortunately, the Kashmiri people have not been able to exercise this right during the last 78 years due to Indian intransigence, despite the fact that the relevant UN Security Council resolutions call for the grant of this inalienable right. In accordance with Article 25 of the UN Charter, all member states, and I quote, agree to accept and carry out the decisions of the Security Council in accordance with the present Charter, unquote. Besides, the UN Security Council resolutions can only be invalidated by fulfillment of the obligation, consent of the parties, or a subsequent resolution or decision of the Security Council. In the absence of any of these conditions, India cannot renege on its solemn commitment to the United Nations, and above all to the Kashmiri people, regarding a free and impartial plebiscite under the UN auspices. Ladies and gentlemen, the situation of human rights in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is a matter of serious concern. Today, the true representatives of the Kashmiri people remain behind the bars, with total number of political prisoners being in thousands. Iconic Kashmiri leader Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani died during detention. The total period of the confinement of his successor, Musarrat Alam Bhatt, exceeds 20 years. Another well-known Kashmiri leader, Shabbir Ahmad Shah, has spent over half of his 71 years' life in jails. The Indian authorities have sought death penalty for Mr. Yasin Malik, who was awarded life sentence in 2022. So far, 14 political parties have been outlawed to suppress Kashmiri people from expressing their true aspirations. In this environment of fear and intimidation, freedom of expression remains seriously challenged. The local media has been made to follow the official line through different pressure tactics. Draconian laws such as the Public Safety Act, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and Unlawful Activities Act offer impunity to the Indian forces to arrest or kill any person and destroy any property. The UN Human Rights Committee and independent experts have declared these laws as incompatible with the international law. These human rights violations are well documented by human rights organizations and international bodies, including the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and the Independent Permanent Human Rights Commission of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. I especially recall the statement made by a former Special Rapporteur on Minority Affairs, Dr. Ferdinand D. Varanasi, who rightly suggested in the run-up to a G20 working group meeting in Srinagar that India was providing, and I quote, a veneer of support to a facade of normalcy, unquote, at a time when massive human rights violations, illegal and arbitrary arrests, political persecution, restriction, and even suppression of free media and human rights defenders continue to escalate. He had drawn an apt conclusion that the situation in Jammu and Kashmir should be decried and condemned, not pushed under the rug and ignored. Ladies and gentlemen, history bears witness that India's continued occupation of large parts of Jammu and Kashmir has threatened regional peace and stability on a number of occasions. The vision of a developed, peaceful, and integrated South Asia will remain unfulfilled until Jammu and Kashmir is resolved in accordance with UN Security Council resolutions. Pakistan believes in peaceful coexistence with its neighbors. Unfortunately, India's negation of UN Security Council resolutions and use of violence as a tool to normalize its illegal occupation remain a destabilizing factor in the prevailing regional environment. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last 78 years, India has made various attempts to strengthen its control over occupied Jammu and Kashmir. However, it has been making renewed efforts to consolidate its occupation since 5th August 2019. The objective is to undermine the territory's internationally recognized disputed status and transform the Kashmiri people into a disempowered community in their own land. However, any process which is subservient to the Indian Constitution cannot be invoked to determine the final status of Jammu and Kashmir. As Jammu and Kashmir is an international dispute, India's legislature or its judiciary have no right to take unilateral measures against the will of the other parties to the dispute. Ladies and gentlemen, in the face of India's ceaseless efforts to subjugate Kashmiris, Pakistan remained determined to play its role to support the right to self-determination of the Kashmiri people. Our strong and steadfast moral, political, and diplomatic support for the Kashmiri people will continue till the realization of this inalienable right. Before I conclude, I must congratulate Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, Ambassador Suhail Mahmood, and their team at the Institute of Strategic Studies on establishment of the Kashmir Resource Center. I am confident that the center will offer a useful repository of knowledge for the researchers, students, and readers. And I thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I request Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, Chairman, Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, for his vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Honorable Chief Guest, Ambassador Amna Baloch, Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, Ambassador Suhail Mahmood, Director General, Institute of Strategic Studies, Honorable former Minister of Interior Malik Habib, and also I saw a while ago former Information Minister here. The representatives of the Kashmiri people here, Mr. Ghulam Muhammad Safi, convener of APHC, Mr. Altaf Hussain Wani, chairman of the Kashmir Institute of International Relations, and many patrons of the institute, Mr. Bhatt, the former chairman of Atomic Energy Commission, Ambassador Shah Jamal, and the President of CAS, Air Marshal Javed, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, particularly the speakers, the young ones. All of them have, touched various aspects of the Kashmir dispute. Fundamentally, it is a question which relates to the respect for the human rights, because the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights, the International Covenants on the Civil and Political Rights, the resolutions on the decolonization, and specifically the resolutions which relate to the Kashmir dispute, the Security Council resolutions. All of them, they stress the respect for the right of self-determination. This is one of the human rights. So my contention is that even if there were no resolutions specific to the Kashmir dispute, the people of Kashmir will have the right of self-determination under all these various international laws. Second aspect is the massive violation of human rights which is taking place in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. It has been very amply described by the previous speakers, but the fact remains that it is called the largest open-air cage which Kashmir is. And Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, all these human rights, even the High Commissioner on Human Rights, in their reports, they have amply described the massive violations of human rights which is taking place in that territory. And genocide alert has also been sounded. So that is the state of affairs. But fact remains that there is an indigenous struggle which is going on. It is not that it is Pakistan which is behind this struggle. I think all right-thinking, freedom-loving people are behind this struggle. It is wrong to say that it is externally inspired. It is indigenous struggle of the people of Kashmir. And for Pakistan, it has special meaning. Because as was pointed out by Safi Saab, that Quaid-e-Azam said it's a jugular vein of Pakistan, the Kashmir. Why did he describe this connection in this fashion? Because Pakistan is linked, or Kashmir is linked to Pakistan through ideological, religious, cultural, geographical links. Our major rivers, they flow from Kashmir, and India has also securitized the flow of these rivers to Pakistan. Then Kashmir is also important in our new emphasis on regional connectivity. And lastly, it remains a nuclear flashpoint. So it impinges on the security, economy, cultural identity of Pakistan. So as Wani Saab has also emphasized that how Modi government is committing demographic aggression, political gerrymandering, colonial settlement. All these policies are underway under the control of Modi's illegal presence, government's presence there. But the resilience of the people of Kashmir has not been dented by any of these policies and measures. And Pakistan, as reiterated by the Honorable Foreign Secretary, remains committed for full political, moral, diplomatic support to the cause of Kashmir. And I congratulate Director General, Institute of Strategic Studies, Ambassador Sohail Mahmood, for the initiative he has taken in establishing a Kashmir Resource Center. This is an humble contribution of the Institute towards highlighting and reinforcing the cause of Kashmir people. Inshallah, the time is not far off when the people of Jammu and Kashmir will be exercising their inherent right of self-determination. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, now I request our chief guest, Ambassador Amna Baloch, Ghulam Muhammad Safi, convener All Parties Hurriyat Conference, Altaf Wani Saab, speakers, Chairman Institute of Strategic Studies, Director General Institute of Strategic Studies, and ladies and gentlemen, you all, to please join us for the inauguration of Kashmir Resource Center, followed by group photo and refreshments. Once again, thank you so much for being here.